Hi everyone, Mitch here. Today we're going to be reacting to DistroTube's new short, Quit Recommending Stable Distros to New Users. I'm sorry, there's a buzz in the background of my audio. That is the fan on my laptop. There is basically nothing I can do about it unless I want to, muck around with Ziploc bags with ice cubes and stuff, and I don't particularly want to get into that stuff because it is risky. Anyway, let's see what he says.
It's time, guys. I think it's time that for new to Linux users, we stop recommending, quote, stable release distributions, static release distributions, things like Ubuntu, Mint, MX, Debian, Fedora.
Fedora's not rolling release. Wait, no, Fedora is rolling release. Fedora is not a stable distribution. Just because it has releases does not mean that it is not rolling. The packages still roll. There are merely incremental version updates. This affects numbers and stuff. Honestly, I don't quite get the Fedora thing, but it's definitely not stable. It gets new packages almost as soon as Arch does. It's only a little bit behind Manjaro, and even ahead of it in some cases, because Manjaro.
For OpenSUSE, it's time we start recommending.
Also, OpenSUSE has both a stable and a rolling distro. They've got Leap if you want stable. They've got Tumbleweed if you want rolling. I'm pretty sure that's a known thing. DistroTube probably even knows that. I bet that on his channel he has even you know what, I'm not going to even look it up right now. Anyway, nothing.
Rolling release distributions to these potential new Linux users, because honestly, Linux on the desktop, not Linux on the server, Linux on the desktop needs to be rolling release now.
Okay, server. Honestly, I don't quite see the point of not having rolling release on your server. If I could run Arch on a server, that would basically eliminate all the problems that are with servers. Anyway, carry on.
I think you're better served having the latest and greatest kernel, the latest and greatest video drivers, especially now that Linux gaming is such a big deal.
Linux gaming is not becoming a big deal because of actually gaming on Linux. It's becoming a big deal because Valve is making it so that Windows gaming works on Linux. There is a difference. Also, many of the people who are going to be switching to Linux nowadays, the new users you speak of, aren't going to be gamers with brand new rigs that don't have drivers in, the Ubuntu kernel. They're going to be people with older computers, just like they always have been. One of the big draws of Linux is that if you've got an older computer and you can't afford a new one, you can just install Linux and it'll work a lot faster. That's kind of the thing that's the thing that gets people hooked on Linux. Gamers who actually that's not true. But gamers who kind of understand what's going on with the Steam Deck situation and everything, they're going to realize, okay, all this is doing is running Windows games. I have Windows already, I don't need to mess with that stuff. And if their rigs are already powerful enough to run heavy games and Windows, why would they bother? Whereas for the same person if put in a position where they can just barely open Reddit, they're going to be a lot more likely to switch to Linux. Having drivers for newer hardware is not particularly an important thing there. Now, for enthusiasts and experienced Linux users who want to migrate to newer hardware, that is a thing, but those people are already going to be using rolling, or they're going to know how to patch it in, or backport it, or whatever.
I think we need to start recommending Arch Linux and Arch-based distributions.
Okay. Yes. Everybody should use Arch, by the way.
Especially to new to Linux users. From now on, when people ask me what should I be running as a first Linux distribution,
Nobody's going to ask you that, DT. They will have already gotten that info from somebody else. Let me just look in the sidebar here. This is an incognito window. They're going to be watching Linus Tech Tips or some normie channel like that, and Anthony Tech Tips is going to tell them to install Pop! OS. So they're already going to be on Pop! OS, or maybe they're going to have taken the mint pill, or just good old Ubuntu. But that's actually, I've seen a lot of posts about Elementary, but they're probably going to be on an Ubuntu-based distro, because you're probably not the first person who comes up. Even for me, you were not the first person who came up. Luke Smith was. I got red-pilled into Arch by Luke Smith long before I had a chance to get red-pilled into Arch by DistroTube, okay? I don't think that's an uncommon experience. You're too late, bro.
Distribution, I'm going to start telling them things like Manjaro.
I personally would avoid anything Manjaro related due to reoccurring controversies around the product leadership. There is a link here to a Reddit post. There's some stuff. Manjaro feels like they play fast and loose with everything. Arch doesn't include AUR helpers by default, specifically because of the potential for user-generated packages to install malware or do something damaging, with the intent being that if you want to use the AUR, you really ought to understand the implications. Manjaro not only includes AUR helpers, it seeks to actively encourage its use for packages not officially maintained, though in their defense, their wiki page does, finally, include fair warnings borrowed from Arch. I'm just not sure it shares the same visibility. Let's just read a couple excerpts here. This post, there was a weird thing that happened with the treasurer. The initiative for this came from him, but the way it was enacted left him feeling kicked out. Jonathan, who's like their guy, something. There's a lot of shady-ish stuff that's happened. Should be very concerned. Let's just open this. Do check for saved session, because of course they've taken it down. The page doesn't exist or is private. Oh, hang on, here we go. Here's the old version before they privated. Thank you, Wayback Machine, and thank you, Brave Browser, for including a Wayback Machine extension by default. That is very nice. May have actually saved my not job because it's a volunteer work, but my job may have actually saved my job. Okay. Manjaro donations are currently held by Open Collective and Community Bridge, with me acting as treasurer since the switch away from Phil's personal bank account as the target for donations. And that in turn due to a company announcement. Anyway, they've had some mishaps with just mismanagement of stuff, and also of giving bad advice to their users, like do a system update, do a partial system update, delete your kernel, download the sources, and then after a reboot you can... Oh wait. Oh, but you can't reboot because you're missing a kernel. There's nothing to boot. It's gonna error. That's okay. Like, he's gonna say some other distros.
Arco, Garuda,
Okay, those are good.
Endeavor, and I think you should too. Alright guys, peace.
War. To prevent war, the galaxy is on Orion's belt, but you are not. So get out. Okay, that's it for me now. And peace.